I will tell you now what happened that made me so vengeful that people pulled out their phones and started filming every second of my wife's tantrum. I heard camera clicks and notifications of people sharing it, making the collapse of my marriage a spectacle for all to see. Life goes on, then slows down. Events come and go. Then there's a lull. It started so gradually that I almost didn't notice. You know how these things go, small shifts here and there, nothing that screams for attention. Isabella, my wife of 6 years, began acting different. At first, I shrugged it off, chalking it up to stress from work. We all go through rough patches, right? But then those little things began to pile up, becoming too obvious to ignore. She started leaving the house earlier than usual and coming home much later, always with some excuse about extra meetings or last-minute deadlines. There I'd be, waiting for her to walk through the door, only to have her brush right past me like I didn't even exist. Her attention seemed glued to her phone. Her face would light up from the screen while I sat across from her, feeling like I'd somehow faded into the background. The laughter that used to fill our house had vanished, leaving nothing but this cold, tense silence in its place. One night, curiosity got the best of me. I'm not proud of it, but she left her phone sitting on the kitchen counter, and as I was tidying up, a message popped up. Something simple like, "Can't wait to see you." My heart sank. I wasn't meant to see it, but I did, and the smile on her face when she read that message. God, I hadn't seen her smile like that in ages. Definitely not around me. That's when the doubts started creeping in. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe just a friend from work, maybe a totally innocent chat. But the anxiety started eating at me, spreading like a poison through my mind, day after day. Her behavior had changed, and I knew it wasn't just my imagination. There was something else going on, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't good. So I started paying closer attention. Little things that I used to overlook became glaringly obvious. She changed her phone password. Not a big deal on its own, but why the sudden secrecy? We used to share everything, from the highlights of our day to dumb memes. But now there was nothing. The warmth we once shared seemed to have evaporated. Every time I tried to get close, she'd brush me off, saying she was tired or not in the mood. I kept telling myself it was probably stress or maybe something personal she didn't want to discuss. But after a while, those excuses started wearing thin. The gap between us grew, and I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering where we had gone off track. Then came the whispers. You know how mutual friends are. They mean well, but once you hear something like, "Oh, I saw Isabella having lunch with that guy from her office," it sticks with you. Same guy, over and over. I wanted to ignore it. I didn't want to become that paranoid husband, suspecting every little interaction. But when his name kept cropping up in different conversations, I couldn't push it away anymore. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. I couldn't just confront her. What if I was wrong? But what if I was right? So I reached out to Honora, my neighbor. She lived right next door, and we'd been friendly for years. She'd been through a rough divorce a couple of years ago, so I figured she might have some insight. One afternoon, while we were having coffee on my porch, I brought it up. Not directly, but I hinted that Isabella had been acting distant, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. Honora just listened, didn't say much at first. And then, she hit me with a question that made me stop cold. "Do you trust her?" I sat there quiet for a long time. The honest truth was, I didn't know anymore. I wanted to, but that seed of doubt was already taking root. Honora, sharp as she is, didn't hold back. She said she'd seen this sort of thing before, where people start changing, keeping parts of their life hidden. She didn't outright accuse Isabella, but she didn't let me dismiss the thought, either. She told me to pay attention, keep an eye on things. People who've got nothing to hide don't hide anything, she said. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. The next few weeks I was careful. I wasn't about to wreck my marriage over rumors without any hard proof. But I watched and waited. Every little thing she did, every late night, every message she quickly hid on her phone, it felt like another piece of the puzzle. The strangest thing was, the more I watched, the more I felt myself detaching emotionally. Like I was preparing for the worst. I'd see her laugh at something on her phone and wonder, is that for me or him? And each time she kissed me goodnight without looking me in the eye, the knot in my stomach just got tighter. During that time, Honora became my go-to. I could talk to her openly without feeling judged. She listened to my doubts, my frustration, and never told me I was overreacting or imagining things. One night, after a few too many beers, I told her everything. The message, the rumors, the frostiness at home. I felt like a fool for not just asking Isabella directly, but I didn't have the nerve. Honora didn't laugh or think I was stupid. She just leaned in and said, "Jonathan, you need to find out for sure. Don't let this eat you up, but be careful." And so, I became a detective in my own marriage, piecing together a puzzle I wasn't sure even existed. After that talk with Honora, things picked up fast. I hadn't planned to get so deep into this, but once that doubt took hold, I couldn't just sit there and let it take over. I needed answers. Living in this strange, suspicious limbo was tearing me apart. And Honora, she made it seem almost normal, like it was perfectly reasonable to be keeping tabs on my own wife. I didn't even feel guilty, maybe I should have, looking back, but when you're in the thick of it, guilt takes a back seat to self-preservation. We started small. I didn't want to come off as a paranoid husband right out of the gate. So the first step was just to keep an eye on her phone. Every now and then, whenever Isabella left her phone lying around, I'd pick it up and take a peek. I'd scroll through her messages, check her social media, just looking for anything that might stand out. It's surprising how easily people forget that their phones hold all the details of their private lives. But Isabella, she was clever. Cleverer than I'd ever realized. Her messages were spotless, almost too clean. Nothing raised a red flag. If she was talking to someone, she must have been using some encrypted app or deleting the evidence right after every conversation. I couldn't decide what frustrated me more. The fact that she was hiding something or my inability to catch her at it. That's when Honora suggested we take it up a notch. "You can't just sit here, waiting for her to slip up," she said one night as we sat on my porch, bathed in an eerie, low glow from the moon hanging heavy in the sky. "You need to start tracking her movements. Be smart about this." First, I thought she was joking. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Follow my wife around like a private investigator? But Honora was dead serious. "We'll do it together," she said, leaning in, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You're not in this alone." And that's how it began. Honora and I set up a system, taking turns watching Isabella's moves. When I was at work, Honora kept tabs on her. And when I could, I'd ask around with friends or acquaintances to see if anyone knew where she was. To my surprise, it wasn't as difficult as I'd thought. Isabella's schedule was pretty routine, except for those mysterious lunch breaks and long nights at the office. Honora and I quickly fell into a rhythm. We became something like partners in crime, each of us contributing to unraveling the truth. We'd meet afterward to compare notes, sharing every little detail we'd discovered. Soon, though, our conversations shifted from Isabella to something more personal. I couldn't put my finger on exactly when it happened, but somewhere along the line, I started looking forward to seeing Honora for reasons that had nothing to do with my wife. She wasn't just helping me expose Isabella's betrayal anymore. She was filling a void in my life that I hadn't even fully recognized. As Isabella drifted further away, I found myself growing closer to Honora. We'd sit on her porch or mine, drinking a couple of beers, talking late into the night. At first, the conversations centered around Isabella, but eventually we started opening up about our own lives. She shared her struggles, her regrets, the things she'd do differently if given the chance, and I shared mine. She had this way of looking at me, like she understood everything I was feeling without me having to say a word. Her gaze was intense, compassionate, and familiar in a way I hadn't felt in years. I hadn't been looked at like that since Isabella and I started drifting apart. Felt incredible to be seen, truly seen. Again. One night, with a few too many beers in me, I let it slip. What if she really is cheating? What am I supposed to do then? Honora didn't hesitate. "You don't just catch her," she said, leaning closer, her voice soft but firm. "You get your own satisfaction. You deserve it, Jonathan. After everything she's put you through." Her words hit me hard, like a freight train barreling through. Revenge. Getting back at Isabella. Hadn't even crossed my mind until that moment. But once Honora planted the idea, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why should I be the one left sitting here, tormented by her betrayal, while she went out and lived her life with someone else? I deserved more than that. The more time I spent with Honora, the more I realized how empty my marriage had become. It wasn't just the lack of physical connection, though God knows that was missing too. It was the intimacy, the emotional closeness. I hadn't had someone listen to me, really listen, in years. Isabella was always too busy, too tired, or too checked out. But Honora? She was right there, fully present. I started to get lost in our late-night conversations, in the way she'd touch my arm when she laughed. And yeah, I'll admit, there was a thrill to it all. The secrecy, the uncertainty of what would happen next. It was intoxicating. Our little investigations went beyond spying on Isabella. We'd plan, mapping out when she'd be out, piecing together her schedule, trying to find patterns. It wasn't hard to figure out when she'd sneak away for lunch with that same guy from her office. I started recognizing his name whenever I heard it, even though Isabella never mentioned him to me. It felt like we were building a case against her, and with every bit of evidence, every late night and suspicious lunch, I felt more justified in what we were doing. Honora became my rock. I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through that time without her. It stopped being about Isabella entirely. It was about Honora and me. Something unexpected was building between us. Then one night, after an evening of tracking and late-night chatting, Honora and I were sitting on her couch, and suddenly, she leaned in and kissed me. I didn't pull away. Hell, I didn't want to. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. In that moment, it wasn't about Isabella, catching her red-handed, or proving her wrong. It was about me, about what I needed and deserved, and about Honora, right there, giving me everything Isabella had taken away. The line between revenge and desire blurred. Honora wasn't just my confidant or ally anymore. She was my escape. She made me feel alive again. And as much as I knew my marriage was on its last legs, a part of me didn't care. I'd already moved on in my heart. Then came the day everything changed, starting out just like any other. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly into my coffee, when Honora called. "I've got something," she said, her voice quiet but serious. My heart raced, a mixture of nerves and dread. We'd been observing, waiting for weeks, but nothing substantial had come up, until now. "She's meeting him," Honora continued, "tonight. There's a reservation at that fancy Italian place downtown. 8 o'clock. I didn't know how Honora had managed to find out, and honestly, I didn't care. All I could think about was that tonight, finally, I'd see everything with my own eyes. No more wondering if I was just imagining things or being paranoid. This was it. My chance for proof. But then a wave of dread hit me so hard it almost knocked the air out of my lungs. Could I really handle seeing Isabella with him? Watching her act like I didn't exist? The thought gnawed at me all day, twisting my insides with a sick kind of anticipation. It was as if waiting for the truth was somehow worse than the betrayal itself. Honora, as usual, was steady. She came over in the afternoon, sitting with me in the living room while we went over the plan. "We'll go together," she said in that calm, soothing tone she always had. "We'll sit at a nearby table. You don't have to confront her if you're not ready. Just see for yourself, that's all." I nodded, trying to hold it together, but inside, my stomach was churning with a mix of anger and anxiety. Honora had a way of grounding me, though. She talked me through every step, where we'd sit, how we'd act. "Don't look at her too much," she advised, resting a reassuring hand on my arm. "We don't want her to realize we're there right away. Let her settle in first." I wasn't sure how I was supposed to act like everything was normal while watching my wife cozy up to someone else just a few tables away. But Honora was right. This was my moment of truth. Couldn't let it pass me by. By the time we left, I was a mess of nerves. I barely remember the drive. The restaurant was one of those upscale places we'd go to for anniversaries. Dim lighting, candlelit tables, the whole atmosphere oozing romance. But tonight it felt like a cruel setup. Honora had already arranged for us to sit at a table with a clear view of where Isabella and Camden would be. We got seated, and I tried to steady my breathing, acting like I wasn't about to watch my entire world fall apart. Honora ordered wine, but I couldn't even think about food. My palms were sweating, and I kept glancing at the door, waiting for them to show up. Calm as always, Honora poured me a glass and encouraged me to sip slowly. "You've got this," she said. "We're just here to watch." And then they walked in. I don't know what I expected, but seeing Isabella with him was like a punch straight to the gut. There she was, my wife, looking beautiful, even radiant, walking in with this man like it was the most normal thing in the world. They were laughing as the hostess led them to their table, just a few feet away from where Honora and I sat. I froze, unable to look away. I finally saw Camden in person, the man I'd only heard about in passing. Nothing remarkable about him, just some guy in a suit. But the way he looked at her told me everything. There was something more than just work between them. They settled in, and I watched as they got comfortable. Camden leaned in close, whispering something that made Isabella smile. She laughed. A soft, genuine laugh I hadn't heard in so long. One that felt completely foreign now. It was like watching a stranger, someone who wasn't the woman I married. Here was a version of Isabella the first barely recognized. Happy, carefree, as if she was in another world entirely with him. Tore me apart inside. My chest felt like it was being crushed, and for a moment, I considered getting up and walking out. I didn't think I could bear it. But then, under the table, Honora's hand found mine, squeezing gently. "Don't break," she whispered. "You need to see this through." So I stayed, watching them hold hands across the table, watching as Camden leaned over to kiss her cheek, and as they smiled at each other like they were the only two people in the room. My blood was boiling. I wanted to storm over, flip the table, scream at them, but instead, I sat there, fuming in silence, feeling my heart shatter bit by bit. Honora didn't say much. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough to keep me steady, reminding me I wasn't alone in this. Every so often, she'd lean over and whisper something in my ear, her calm voice helping me hold my rage in check. And then, during their dinner, she suggested something that caught me off guard. "You know," she murmured, her tone almost playful, "if you really want to get to her, maybe it's time we made our move." I turned to her, unsure of what she meant, but Honora just gave me this sly, knowing smile, her eyes glinting in the dim light. "You want her to know that you know, right? Let's give her something to think about." Before I could respond, she leaned over and kissed me, right there in the middle of the restaurant. This wasn't some quick peck, either. It was slow, intentional, deliberate. When she pulled back, her gaze flicked to Isabella's table, and sure enough, Isabella was staring, her expression frozen, the laughter and light in her face extinguished. In that moment, I felt a strange, twisted sense of satisfaction. Isabella had been playing her game for months, but now it was my turn. If she wanted to play this way, then fine, I could play dirty too. She didn't confront us right away. No. She tried to keep her composure, acting as if nothing had happened. But I could see the fire in her eyes, see how her gaze kept darting over to our table, her posture tense and her movements stiff. Honora leaned in closer, smirking as she spoke softly, laughing as if we were having the best night of our lives. It was all for show, a part of Honora's plan to push Isabella over the edge. And it worked. Halfway through their meal, Isabella couldn't take it anymore. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor, and stormed over to our table. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice cutting through the low hum of the restaurant. I looked up at her, keeping my face calm, and shrugged. "Having dinner. What's it look like?" Her eyes flashed with fury. "Don't play games with me, Jonathan." But this time, the games weren't mine to play. Honora's hand squeezed mine under the table, a reminder that I finally had the upper hand. Isabella's carefully built world was about to collapse, just like mine had. Sitting there, watching her struggle to contain her anger, I felt a dark satisfaction settle in. The tables had turned. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one left in the dark. left wondering what was happening. I watched as Isabella glanced back at Camden, who still sat at their table, looking annoyed and confused. Then she turned back to us, her eyes narrowing, breathing rapid and shallow. She was barely holding herself together. And when Honora leaned over and kissed me again, this time slower, more deliberate, it was like I saw Isabella's entire world shatter. Her fists clenched, and suddenly, she lost it. "Are you kidding me, Jonathan?" she shouted, her voice rising above the quiet buzz of the restaurant. Conversations stopped, heads turned, and all eyes fixed on us. Tension hung thick in the air as people waited, transfixed, for what would happen next. I didn't respond right away. I let her words settle, watching as she unraveled in front of everyone. It felt surreal, as if I was watching it all unfold from somewhere outside myself. Meanwhile, Honora sat back, calm as ever, a small, satisfied smirk playing on her lips as she took a sip of her wine, completely unfazed by the scene Isabella was creating. Isabella took a step closer to our table, her voice rising even louder. "You sit here kissing her, while I'm with Camden. Are you really that pathetic? You think this makes you any better than me?" I looked her dead in the eyes, my voice steady. "No, Isabella, this isn't about being better. This is about you lying to me for months." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words faltered. She just stood there, her face flushed with fury, her chest rising and falling with each ragged breath. Around us, people started to murmur, leaning into each other, eyes fixed on the scene playing out before them. I could feel the judgment, the quiet assessment of strangers witnessing the collapse of my marriage. "I'm not the one sneaking around," I said, my voice low but firm. "You think I didn't know?" That was when she finally snapped. "You don't get to play the victim here," she yelled, slamming her hands on the table, making the glasses rattle. A couple at the nearby table flinched. "You're nothing but a spineless coward," kissing her right in front of me like some child. "You think this is revenge? You think this makes you a man?" My pulse quickened, anger rising in my chest. But before I could respond, Honora stood, ice cold and poised. "I think he looks like a man who's finally done with your bullshit," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. Isabella's eyes darted to Honora, and for a second, I thought she might actually swing at her. The tension between them was intense, two predators sizing each other up. But Isabella turned her anger back to me instead. "You think this is over?" she spat, her voice trembling with rage. "You think you can just flaunt this trash in front of me and I'll walk away?" That's when one of the waiters approached, trying to intervene. "Ma'am, we need you to calm down," he said gently, cautious like he was trying to approach a live wire. But Isabella wasn't hearing it. She pushed his arm away, her focus locked on me. "You're a joke, Jonathan," she sneered. "You and this pathetic little revenge act. Do you think I care? Do you think this bothers me?" Her voice echoed, silencing the restaurant. I could hear the clicks of cameras, the discreet beeps of people texting. My heart raced, but I let her go on. This was her mess, her creation, and I wanted everyone to see it. "You're the one who destroyed us," I said, loud enough for everyone around us to hear, my tone calm but resolute. "Not me." Isabella flinched, her face twisting with contempt. And something else, something vulnerable. It was like she hadn't expected this to blow up so publicly, so completely. She took a step back, glancing around as if realizing for the first time just how many people were watching. Then, as if a switch flipped, she turned and stormed out, shoving past the waiters, ignoring Camden who sat there, stunned and silent. She didn't even glance back as the door slammed shut behind her. For a moment, the restaurant was dead silent. Then slowly, the murmurs returned, people whispering, some laughing, others shaking their heads. The waitstaff worked to restore order, apologizing to the nearby tables, but the damage was done. Honora leaned back, a satisfied smile on her face as she raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said softly, her voice brimming with satisfaction. I sat there, my mind reeling from everything that had just happened. I wasn't sure how to feel. Part of me was still in shock, but another part, darker, colder, felt a strange sense of relief, almost satisfaction. Isabella's breakdown was the confirmation of everything I'd suspected. A public spectacle that left no room for doubt. There was no turning back now. But I knew the fallout was only beginning, and we were far from the end of this. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. I figured it was the usual emails or messages. But when I checked, it was something entirely different. My notifications were flooded, social media, messages from friends, acquaintances, even people I hadn't spoken to in ages. A video had surfaced. The video. Someone at the restaurant had captured the entire showdown. Isabella's meltdown, the shouting, the insults. All of it was online now, and it didn't take long to go viral. Within hours, it had racked up thousands of views, comments piling up, and people sharing it everywhere. The title? Brutal. Wife loses it after catching husband with another woman. Karma at its finest. I clicked on it, watching as Isabella's face filled the screen. Her voice slightly garbled from the low quality, but the anger clear as day. In the background, I saw myself calm and detached. And then there was Honora, sitting casually as if none of it affected her. The comments were ruthless. This chick got exactly what she deserved. Imagine being this unhinged in public. Whoever that guy is, he handled this like a pro. As I scrolled through, a strange mix of emotions churned inside me. Part of me felt a pang of guilt, knowing Isabella's life was about to implode on a very public stage. But a larger part of me, maybe the part that had been buried under her lies, was satisfied. She'd built up her reputation so carefully, only to have it torn apart in minutes. People were calling her out, mocking her, dissecting every moment of that video. By the day's end, it had tens of thousands of views, and everyone was watching her unravel. The strangest thing? I didn't feel sorry for her. Not one bit. Isabella had lied, betrayed me, and now the price was being paid. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. There was no going back, no chance to fix things. She had shattered what we had, and now the world knew it too. After that night at the restaurant, life shifted drastically. There was no more sneaking around, no more hiding. Honora and I made it official. Within days, she was spending more nights at my place. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was something real. She filled a void I hadn't even realized had been empty for so long. We had laughter again, deep conversations, and a sense of ease I'd forgotten was possible. With Honora, I felt like I could breathe, and my life seemed lighter, even in the middle of the lingering chaos. Meanwhile, Isabella was dealing with the fallout from her public explosion. The video of her losing it spread like wildfire, amassing thousands of views in days. People tore her apart in the comments, mocking her every move. Eventually, it reached her workplace. Through mutual friends, I heard that her reputation at work was in shambles. The whispers began, people questioning her professionalism, and soon she was the subject of office jokes. Isabella had always been so careful about her image, but now that image was in ruins. Then there was Camden. Once the drama became too big, he vanished. I wasn't the least bit surprised. He wanted no part of the fallout, especially after the video took off online. He ghosted her, leaving her to handle the aftermath on her own. After that, she tried reaching out to me. At first, it was just a few texts, simple, vague things like, "Can we talk?" or "I miss you." I ignored them. Then the messages changed, becoming apologies, confessions that she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to make things right. But it was too little, far too late. One day, she showed up at the house. I opened the door, and there she was, looking defeated. Her eyes were red, her face pale, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. She seemed barely able to hold it together. "Jonathan, please," she said, her voice shaky. "Can we talk? I messed up, I know I did. But we can fix this." I stared at her, taking in the sight. This wasn't the confident, polished Isabella I'd once known. She looked desperate, pathetic even. "There's nothing left to fix," I said, my voice cold, detached. I didn't feel any anger, just finality. Her gaze shifted past me. glancing inside the house. And that's when Honora appeared, stepping into the room and casually slipping her arm around me. Isabella's face fell. Her expression hardened as the tears stopped. She knew it was over. Without another word, she turned and walked away. Just like that, the last shred of hope she had was gone. After that, Isabella stopped trying to contact me. The texts stopped, the calls ceased. She was on her own. From what I'd heard, her life wasn't going well. Her job was at risk. Her friends were distancing themselves, and Camden had completely ghosted her. The life she'd built was crumbling, all because of her own choices. Meanwhile, my life with Honora grew stronger. She wasn't just someone who'd helped me get back at Isabella. She was someone I truly cared about. We built a life together, one that felt right, natural. It was easy, it was fun, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had something to look forward to. Isabella was just a memory now, a part of my past that I'd finally left behind. And as I moved forward with Honora, I realized how much better off I was without her. Funny how life works, isn't it? If you'd asked me a year ago where I'd be, I never would have guessed this. Now, sitting here with Honora by my side, I've had time to reflect on everything. The path that led me here, the choices I made, and the person I became along the way. Revenge wasn't my intention, not at first. I just wanted the truth, to understand what had happened to my marriage, to the woman I thought I knew. But once Honora and I started digging, once I saw the reality of it all, it became more than just seeking answers. It became about reclaiming control over a life where I'd felt powerless. And I did. I got my revenge. Watching Isabella's life unravel, seeing her realize I wasn't the fool she'd taken me for, it felt right. For a time. But looking back now, I wonder if it was worth it. Was it worth the anger, the public drama, the bitterness? Could things have been different if we'd been honest from the start? If we just communicated, maybe we wouldn't have ended up here. Maybe the betrayal wouldn't have hurt so much. Maybe I wouldn't have felt driven to go to such lengths to expose her. But life doesn't work that way. We made our choices, and now we're both living with the fallout. Sometimes I think about Isabella. Not in a way that makes me miss her, but in a way that makes me wonder if she's learned anything from all this. Last I heard, she was still trying to rebuild her life, picking up the pieces of her career, her friendships, her reputation. Part of me does feel a little pity. Not because she didn't deserve what happened, but because I know the pain of losing everything you thought was secure. The satisfaction I felt came in the moment when the video went viral, when the whispers began at her office, when Camden vanished. But now, that satisfaction has faded. I've let go of the anger and resentment. They don't hold me the way they once did. With Honora, I found something real. She's been my anchor through all of this. What started as a shared bond over pain became something so much deeper. She isn't just the woman who helped me catch my wife's lie. She's the woman who's given me a new reason to hope, to look forward. With her, there are no pretenses, no hidden agendas. Just the two of us, moving forward and building something real. It's strange how betrayal can lead to a path you never saw coming. If Isabella hadn't cheated, if we hadn't gone through that mess, maybe I'd still be stuck in a loveless marriage, unaware that I deserved more. Honora showed me that life doesn't have to be defined by pain or regret. It can be about growth, about finding someone who sees you for who you are and makes you feel like you matter. That's what I'll carry with me. Not the revenge or the satisfaction of watching Isabella's life crumble, but the understanding that sometimes you have to go through hell to find happiness. It wasn't pretty, and it sure wasn't easy, but I came out stronger on the other side. Maybe even a little wiser. I've learned that while I can't control others' actions, I can control how I respond to them. And I've chosen to move on, to release the bitterness, and to embrace this new chapter. As for Isabella, I don't know where her path will lead. She's still out there trying to mend what she broke. Maybe she'll find a way to rebuild. Maybe she won't. Either way, it's not my burden to carry anymore. The last time I saw her on my porch with tears in her eyes, I realized something important. She wasn't the villain of my story. She was just another flawed person who made bad choices, as we all do. But the difference is that I've learned from mine and moved on, while she's still living in the aftermath of hers. So here I am, sitting in my house, our house, with Honora. The woman who guided me through my darkest moments is now the light I didn't realize I needed. Together, we've built something strong, something good. As I look to the future, I feel at peace, truly at peace. It's funny, isn't it? How life throws you curveballs when you least expect it, and sometimes those curveballs lead to something better. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back with anger or regret. I'm just looking forward.